Welcome, dear viewer, to yet another installment of the Random Ancient Aliens series, because it is important in times where everyone is arguing about their pronouns and what kind of LGTV they are to take stock of what we do have, appreciate the small things in life, and recognise just how far we have come as a civilization. So sit back, clear your mind of all evidence that points to the contrary, and give thanks to the aliens who built the world for us. And in this particular case, when they founded the United States of America, the land of the freedom eagle. Because although lamestream historians like to think they know everything with their precious little evidence, they can't even answer the simplest of questions, like, how was Joe Biden in the Senate 180 years ago? Why does everyone with information that could lead to the arrest and conviction of Hillary Clinton always die to death? Who turned the frogs gay? And most importantly, why did those dirty traitors dump all that perfectly fine tea into that harbour? That wasn't a fiery but mostly peaceful protest, it was just really rude. So let's get into it, audience. Let's find the answers to how America got started that nobody was asking. Show begin, and here we are in Washington DC 1952, during the time where the US and the Soviet Union were a little bit mad at each other, and at any point that Cold War could turn hot like your mum. But on one particular day, July the 19th, an air traffic controller picked up 7 unidentified objects on his radar machine, and by using the power of science, determined that they weren't Soviet aircraft. They were actually light bulbs in the sky, so sent a bunch of fighter jets to go check it out. But as soon as they arrived, those light bulbs had totally disappeared, and a whole lot of other people saw it too, so that was really spooky. Where did those light bulbs go? Why were they picked up on radar if nothing was there? And why did the CIA plan to commit a false flag attack against their own civilians to justify an invasion of Cuba? And why, after JFK refused to allow the plan to go ahead, did he end up getting assassinated by a grassy knoll? Anyway, what relevance do these light bulbs have to the founding of America? Well, actually, fuck all. No idea what this is even mentioned, but it was here, and it was definitely the aliens, because what other logical explanation could there be? So let's head back to the time just before the Revolutionary War, the period in history where everyone was a little bit salty because a certain country that's even smaller than Nevada pulled the strings of the entire planet and just wanted people to pay their taxes. No need to be big mad about it. But during this time, there was a very mysterious group called the Lunar Society, who would meet up during a full moon to discuss political ideas and science. And within this society was none other than Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, 2 of the founding fathers of America. And that is very suspicious. So Sweaty Playground Man gets telling us, yeah, they all met up and discussed things like, science, politics, treason against the empire, and freaking aliens, because they wondered whether there was intelligent life out there in space, just like every normal person does, but because these guys were of historical note, that totally makes it eyewitness testimony. Well, that's definitely a big fat tick for the evidence of aliens, so let's leave that there instead of investigating further and head to the War of Independence, where George Washington was fighting against the noble redcoats in hopes to establish a new country. Now, usually you'll expect those American fellas to be planning on replicating the political structures of Europe with like parliaments and monarchies and all that, but instead of cheating off civilized societies, George Washington was hoping to base his new country's political structure on the philosophies of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But how did those founding fathers learn about all this ancient stuff? Greece and Italy are freaking miles away. Well, Alien Meme Man is going to fill us in on that one. Yeah, so it takes like 4 days to travel from Virginia to New York by horse, and all those founding father guys would like read books during their travels, and some of them were political, so that's why they learnt that stuff, yeah. Okay, so that's all starting to fall into place now, right? We have the founding fathers, the ancient Mediterranean political structures, and secret lunar societies. Must be something mysteriously extraterrestrial going on here, because how else would you explain these coincidences? So let's head back to 1790, a few years after the war, where those Americans started building their capital city. A fairly simple task, we have been building them for millennia. But there was something strange going on here. Why were they basing their architecture on ancient Greece and not ugly ass modern architecture commonly found in the culturalist trading posts like London? Is that not beautiful? Is it not inspirational? No, it was because the Greeks were ancient, and obviously anything ancient is a direct result of aliens. Therefore, there is no other explanation at all, none whatsoever. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But where are the aliens? Are they in the room with us right now? Or are they currently being presented to the Mexican government? No, but it was definitely the aliens behind the architectural decisions of Washington because William Herschel, a prominent astronomer, discovered Uranus and some of Jupiter's moons, believing that they possibly had life on them, so that about sums up all the evidence you need right there. Why else would there be planets in the solar system if there's not 10-foot green aliens on them? And even Benjamin Franklin agreed, because he wrote in one of his books, "I believe that man is not the most perfect being but one. Rather, that as there are many other degrees of being his inferior, so there are many degrees of being superior to him." And he meant the frickin' aliens. And within one of his pamphlets that he used to write and distribute, he wrote about the strange Iroquois creation story, where the Native American tribe believed that a sky woman, who could have been an alien, got pregnant once, then came down to Earth and shitted out a kid, therefore humanity is now confirmed. And since he wrote that on paper, it must be true and that woman was definitely an alien. But let's just ask the question again, because trying to fill a 44-minute show about verbal diarrhea is surprisingly pretty hard. Therefore, the runtime must be padded. Did the founding fathers actually believe in aliens? Well, yeah, and we have the evidence to confirm it. A first-hand account from one of George Washington's very own aides, where at Valley Forge, on a cold dark winter night in 1777, during the war, Washington went into some woods and had a vision, where a mysterious woman alien said, "Hey, you've got this, bro, and here's a map of how the United States will look like in a few hundred years, but you've just gotta fight for it by not paying your taxes." Now, usually people would discount that account as a made-up story to rally the troops into fighting harder for a future filled with Doritos and Mountain Dew. But they would be dead wrong with AIDS, because us ancient astronaut theorists believe it was totally real, as the guy who wrote that letter lived to be 100 years old. And that's just insane. And it just gets bettlier, as Sweaty Playground Man gets telling us. Yeah, totally true, mate, because there were these other diary entries, and one of them said that he went into the woods one day, and a bloke with a green face showed up and a mysterious ball of light too, and since it was written down on paper, we should kind of take it at face value and not leave it open to interpretation at all. Okay, so that evidence is very hard to discount. I mean, if it's written on paper, it must be true. But that's not all, as we have even more of it. In 1800, at Baton Rouge, William Dunbar sent a report to none other than Thomas Jefferson saying, "You'll never believe this, bro. I saw a big ball of light outside and it totally crashed and exploded, but strangely it didn't leave a crater. So it definitely wasn't a meteor or any other kind of phenomena. It was the fucking aliens, bro. And trust me, I wrote this down on paper." Now, Thomas Jefferson was blown away by this and brought that letter to his science friends, and even wrote his own report on the matter. And since that was also written down, it double confirmed it was the aliens. So let's leave that there and go no further, for we must pose the same question, asked just slightly differently this time, because again, we gotta pad the runtime. Did the founding fathers not only believe in aliens, but also encounter them? Well, that was a stupid question, as we have just got an evidence dump larger than a morning coffee bowel movement. As in 1866, a lithograph created 67 years after George Washington's death and is located in the Library of Congress, has a fucking flying saucer on it, with a ladder attached too. And that is located right next to George Washington himself. Now, normies would believe that that's actually Jacob's ladder all the way up to heaven, but they would be retarded, because what it actually is a staircase to the alien spacecraft, and Alien Meme Man is now confirming it. Yeah! Why else would it be there if it wasn't because of extraterrestrials? I mean, it was created 67 years after Washington died, and that's 2 years off being 69, and that's the funny number. Coincidence? I think not. Okay, so it's all heating up now. No other possible explanation for this at all. But like an upturned bucket of diarrhea, we've just got evidence leaking out all over the place now. Like the layout of Washington DC. Have you noticed that you can make a pentagram using a layout of roads? Pretty convincing, eh? Just like us Brits putting shapes on our road layouts too. A bit spooky, to say the least. Well, enough of that, and let's head back to Virginia 1791, where those Freemasons, including George Washington, began planning their capital city by placing cornerstones around the edges of what will later become the District of Columbia. And when they laid those stones down, they put corn and wine and oil on top of it for ceremonial purposes, where the corn represented prosperity, the wine stood for happiness, and the oil predicted future invasions of Iraq. But according to scholars, it was just a ritual. Humans have been doing them for years. But not to us ancient astronaut theorists it wasn't, because all that corn and wine grew up to be a massive monument, and that is proof, as it was built to represent the stars, and therefore aliens, because that monument points towards Pleiades constellation, and that's exactly what the ancient Egyptians did too, and those guys were literally aliens, therefore it was definitely them, aliens confirmed again. So bored school teacher man gets taking us on a field trip to see the Washington Monument. Yes, he says, it's pretty big. It's over there, and it points towards the sky. But we need to read between the lines and think for a moment, what did our ancestors actually want us to see? Now, you normies sitting at home would believe those ancestors literally wanted you to see the monument. But you'll be wrong. Dead wrong with alien aids, because what they actually wanted you to see is the stars because of energy beams that come down from the sky and get reflected in the swimming pool, so definitely means something and totally isn't made up to fit a 44-minute episode. Now, if you're still thinking, nah, this just sounds like made up gobbledygook by the History Channel because there's only so many times that you can make documentaries on Hitler before needing to diversify content. Well, you can get the fuck out of here, you science denier. But for all of you teetering on the edge of enlightenment, maybe this will be the nutbuster you needed. So let's introduce Pierre L'Enfant, a Freemason who was given a job of designing the layout of Washington DC by using the cornerstones George Washington laid down earlier. And he began designing it by joining up the dots of north, east, south and west. Something no one has ever done before. And then they started planning buildings and roads to be in straight lines. And that's very strange. Why not just base your entire road structure on endless twists and turns so you have to slow down every 30 fucking seconds or you'll literally fucking die to death? And would you look at that? He put Freemason symbols into the layout of Washington too. And that just straight up confirms it. Space aliens. And here's Rudy Giuliani to hit the home run. Yeah, that Pierre New Times Roman font man made a pentagram and Thomas Jefferson also had a hand in it too, because there's lots of lines there and space also exists, so you know, aliens. And if there was a UFO flying past our planet, one day they'll look down and see a pentagram in Washington and they'll know that we're totally friendly and all that. Unless it's Independence Day level aliens, then we're totally fucked. So let's just get asking a question one last time because you may not have heard it the first time. Did the Washington Monument, the layout of the roads, and the White House prove that the founding fathers were influenced by aliens and not just straight lines? Well, yeah, because inside the Capitol building, painted on the ceiling, is George Washington with angels, and that's a portal to the stars. Enough said, no arguing in the comments. The United States was founded by aliens, and the History Channel knocked it out the park again. Big shout out to my Patreon boys and guys. Taylor J, Stephen P, Bill Blake, The Wonderful Mr. Wolf, Andy W, ConspiracyQuery.net, Hetzer J, Ryan C, and of course, The Mighty Pen.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.